I'm Sophie. If you're new here, welcome to my channel. If you're not new here, welcome back. Happy to have you back. It is June. I am going to talk about some summer books because love a summer reading list. So this is a list of books that give me some summer vibes. Often they take place during the summer for obvious reasons. We've got an array of moods and feelings. These are not necessarily beach reads. Some of them are quite intense, but I felt like it went along well with the new season. Apologies if you're not in the Northern Hemisphere and you're not heading into summer, but maybe you can kind of live vicariously through these sunny books.
Bibliosophie.
The first book on my list is Bonjour, Tristesse by Françoise Sagan. This is a total classic. This is a complete classic. If you're a French teenager, you probably read this at some point because it is about a French teenager. I've seen this book kind of making the rounds in the past couple of years in English-speaking YouTube as well. We're following a 17-year-old who goes to live with her father for the summer in the French Riviera, along with her father's new mistress, who's also quite young, and, you know, various dramatics ensue. People arrive, our protagonist comes of age up to a point, and there's a lot of interpersonal, familial relationships. You know, the good stuff of a coming-of-age summer novel. Next up is also taking place in France, and that's Giovanni's Room by James Baldwin. This takes place in Paris. We are following a young American man whose fiancée is currently in Spain, pondering the question of marriage. And he is engaged or semi-engaged, maybe, to a woman, but he has, in his current Parisian limbo state, started an affair with Giovanni, a bartender. And so he is also thinking a lot and very ambivalent about his sexuality, his relationship to his female fiancée, his homosexuality, his relationship beyond just the hetero or homosexuality specifically to Giovanni. Has a lot of lust and desire, a lot of, it's Baldwin, of course, so a lot of the interpersonal mixed with the political questions of society and sexuality, of penalizing people. And it's tense and full of longing, and I think quite good for a summer read. We are still traipsing around Europe with A Room with a View by E.M. Forster. This takes place at the turn of the 20th century. We are following a young English woman who goes to Italy for a kind of an exploratory trip with her sort of fussy chaperone. She learns about art, but also about longing. There's some coming of age aspects to it. It's a love story. We then follow her and the cast of characters that we have partially met in Italy back in England, where the love story continues, the kind of blossoming of both aesthetics and sensuality continues, and also very much a send-up of English Edwardian life and the very kind of white bourgeois English going abroad sensibility. You guessed it, our next one is about an English person who goes abroad. There's a theme. The next book on my list is Outline by Rachel Cusk. In this one, there's not much plot. This is an English writer who goes to Athens to teach a summer writing course. So it's basically Rachel Cusk going to Greece and having thinking sessions. She meets various people. We see her interaction and conversations with various people, and just kind of hear her thoughts about things, excuse me. This is very much as kind of a thinky sun beach situation. about creativity and yourself and your relationship to people. We are leaving mainland Europe, but we're still going to the beach with Sag Harbor by Colson Whitehead. This takes place in the 80s, and it's following a teenage boy who lives in Manhattan. He and his brother are going to Sag Harbor for the summer. They're Black, and they are basically the only Black people in both their Manhattan lives and also in now their summer Sag Harbor stay. And it's about culture, also very much coming of age, kind of code switching, inventing yourself, race, family relations. This one is actually a good kind of breezy beach read in a lot of ways. It has plot, its outline is breezy in a kind of non-plot way. Sag Harbor, I think, makes a really good beach read in a lot of ways. Back in the category of ponderous, maybe more melancholy beach read is Que reviennent ceux, sont, loin by Pierre Adrian. I mentioned this book last year, I think, something like that. This takes place during the summer in Brittany. It is about a man who goes back to his kind of summer stay in the northwest of France and is reminded of previous summers when he was a child. It's about the passage of time, about the kind of melancholy of summers past, coinciding with summers present and maybe summers future, family relationships, and the relationships that kind of get held in amber as memories of the summer, as well as the kind of relationships that keep developing. For me, it's tremendously recognizable and nostalgic because I have spent all of my life going to Brittany for a chunk of the summer. That is, to me, what French summer is, and especially child summer is to me, taking the train to Brittany. So I've recognized a lot of it. I don't think it has been translated to English. I haven't put these books in any sort of specific grouping or order, but I'm noticing that accidentally there has happened to be quite a lot of grouping that has happened, partially because a lot of the locations of these books are very, very similar, but we now have a few more coastal stories, and specifically kind of Celtic coastal stories. Next up on my list is The Sea by Iris Murdoch. This is about a retired playwright who takes up a new life on the coast and has to deal with the ghosts of his own kind of memory and past. He is a quite bizarre and ridiculous, very self-obsessed creature, and he has decided that he's going to write his memoirs, but the ghosts of his past are not just contained to the page, I shall say. It's quite a rollicking story with a lot of parts to it. It's actually quite long, and it is funny and ridiculous and quite sad, and a differently interesting view of memory and narrative in summer. Next up, still in our Celtic seaside situation, we have The Colony by Audrey Magee. This takes place on a small Irish island where there are very, very few people left. Most people have moved away or died out. It is the 80s, and a few people, the older people especially, still speak Gaelic. And an English painter is spending the summer on the island to paint and take the specific light of the island, and also I think just kind of fetishize the remoteness of it, quite honestly. And a French linguist is also on the island to study the particular Irish dialect that is all but extinct that comes from this island. This is about modernity and independence and tradition, the importance of tradition, but also the dead weight of it, about exploitation of outsiders, about identity, since we're following these two outsiders who each have a stake in wanting to keep the kind of toy wonderland of the island intact, but that kind of comes face to face with what the locals actually want and need. And because this takes place in the 80s, we have as the background noise to all of this, of course, on the mainland, the Troubles. So it becomes this kind of microcosm of a fight for identity, independence, modernity, etc. Still on the ocean, but this time very much in the no plot, just vibes camp, is To the Lighthouse by Virginia Woolf. It doesn't have absolutely no plot, but it doesn't have much plot. We're now on a Scottish coast, and we are following a well-to-do family who is summering there. Parents and children have kind of minimal experiences, but mostly a lot of thoughts and observations. This is very much a thinky, sunny, watery exploration that I think is really good to read during the summer months. All right, we're heading into much less chill territory with The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath. This takes place in the 50s in New York over the summer. Our main protagonist has a summer internship at a fashion magazine, a ladies' magazine, and becomes really disillusioned. She is 19 years old. She is kind of a bright young thing and living in New York and meeting people kind of breaks her. This is a very autobiographical novel, famously. It has its ups and downs. I recommend it, obviously, with some caveats, some not so casual racism, for instance. But it also has a really interesting, thick, unpleasant summer mood. Summer is not always fun and breezy. It's also horrible in its own just kind of festering way. And this is festering summer. Bringing you some more festering with L'étranger, or The Stranger, by Albert Camus. This is a classic. You have probably heard of this. A settler Frenchman learns about the death of his mother at the very beginning of the book and kills an unnamed Arab man, and we kind of follow along his internal monologue of alienation and kind of absurd out of placeness. This is a whole ass classic, but it is also that thick, kind of uncomfortable weight of the heat of summer. Now that we're on the topic of weighty, this kind of summer, The Days of Abandonment by Elena Ferrante. I think I have already recommended this as a summer book previously. A woman in Turin is left by her husband after a seemingly happy, healthy marriage. He just shocks her by telling her he's leaving her, and she is spending time in their apartment with their dog and their two children, and dealing with that shock and with the jealousy and doubt and despair and hatred, and really just driving herself insane in this apartment. So this is very much also thick, fetid, summer, just really short book that packs a whole lot of punch and is really good when you're in the unpleasant depths of summer, I think. All right, we're getting back to a much more quiet place with A Month in the Country by J.L. Carr. This is about a man who spends a month in the country. It's right there in the title. There's not that much more to it. He is a World War I veteran, and he's been hired to renovate, or rather to uncover a mural that's been whitewashed in a small English town. And he spends time in that village, meeting people, a lot of time alone, kind of contemplating his life, his past, his experience in the war, his disillusionment with his country and kind of the present. It's about the changing of the world with World War I, the change of pace of life, and also an attempt to return to relationships with other people. And finally, Whereabouts by Jhumpa Lahiri. We are going back to wandering around European cities. A woman is just kind of wandering around do we know which Italian city? Actually, I'm not even sure we know that it is an Italian city. I think it's an Italian city because it was written in Italian originally, but we follow a woman in a city contemplating her life, her aloneness, her surroundings, her history, herself, exploring things. It's a very chill, sometimes melancholy, sometimes very beautiful book about kind of time and place. And that's it. We've got some tension, we've got some just breezy thinkiness. Those are my summer books. What do you plan to read this summer? I'm not entirely sure. I'm thinking up what books I will be reading. If you'd like a video of my summer TBR, I'll make that. Let me know in the comments if you do want that. And let me know what's on your summer TBR. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you, ideally, pretty soon. Bye.